became like a political leverage, coercive ones, and adding to the tensions that we have. Shared economic spaces, instead of, for example, oil, budget, trade, border management, they can have been either deepening the structural federalism and to implement it, or to be used also as a coercive one against the Kurdistan region. Here, I would like to identify as the reference and the source of these issues that we have. We, as the Kurdistan region, we always refer to the constitution, but in dealing with Baghdad, they have been always referring to the existing laws in Iraq. And we are both right, because when we refer to the constitution, there are constitution articles to incorporate what we wanted for a federal Iraq. But when the lack of legislation for the constitutional article makes the Iraqi government to refer to existing law, and the existing laws are based on centralism and lack of federalism, and that has reflected in all these 110 problems that I mentioned earlier. For example, Iraq right now depends on its income depends 93% on the oil and on the income from the oil, and it made Iraq a rentier state. And we all know that a rentier state cannot bring that diversification for the economy in order to incorporate that fiscal federalism that we need. And it's much more easier in a rentier state to politicize and to weaponize the fiscal equitable distributions to all the regions that we have. Added to that, also, we have this constitutional vagueness surrounding the management of the natural resources, of the border crossings, of the custom authorities, taxation, lack of transparency, and add to that the chronic corruptions also, that the corruptions that we have. That's why in the Kurdistan region, we do believe that it's the high time with our partners in Iraq to review all these constitutional impediments that we have in order to make sure that federalism and the equitable distribution of the wealth and the federal fiscals that we have, in order to make sure that there will be a sustainable and continuous peace in Iraq in terms of the implementation, and to prevent the Iran's rolling back to further authoritarian and centralism. You correctly mentioned, Skagranj, about the spoilers. Unfortunately, now we have two types of the spoilers, domestic spoilers and also a proxy war spoilers from the regional spoilers acting in Iraq. Just last week, we had this attack on Kormor, and it was the 11th time that Kormor was attacked. And the message was very clear in the post-election that there are forces that they don't want neither Kurdistan region and Baghdad to be in a good term in terms of the implementation of all of these agreements that we have. That's why, unfortunately, in order to bring peace in the relationship with Baghdad, between Kurdistan region and Baghdad, we have to make sure that no more weaponization of oil resources, of the flow of budget, and the suffocating of the KRI's, Kurdistan region in Iraq's non-oil economic activities. Because unfortunately right now we have been in contact with some of the companies. They are suffering from the double taxation in the Kurdistan region and a taxation in Baghdad for their activities that we have. And also we can say that by imposing different kinds of the checkpoints by this outlawed armed groups, they are preventing also the flow of the Kurdistan's non-oil domestic productions to the other markets in Iraq, and that's preventing the development of the industry agricultures in Kurdistan region. So for that, we do believe that by implementing federalism, peace can be sustained, but in order to have federalism, we need to have more federalists in Baghdad, and the constitution to be implemented exactly as it is, both in Kurdistan region. If we overstep some of the implementation of the constitution, we have to be transparent with each other, and in order to build this kind of the institution. And in order to do that, we need a full implementation of the constitution.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Dr. Hێمن. Again, very useful in the sense that it ties into what Dr. Bashir mentioned. You kind of bring us back down to earth with the emphasis on the weaponization of economic initiatives. And that's a great segue for Rashid to come in. From the Qatari Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I often say that there's a misconception when it comes to the Gulf states. Yes. The idea that they're going to hand out blank checks to fund reconstruction efforts with zero accountability, without zero follow-up. But just like everybody else, the Gulf states, Qatar in particular, is looking at how the reality looks on the ground. Dr. Hێmn mentioned federalism, for example. And you know, if I'm a country, a government, or a private sector institution, a bank, etc., I'm going to look at what realities are on the ground when it comes to power sharing, resource sharing, to ensure I at least don't lose my investment, let alone get a return on my investment. So I guess my question for you, Rashid, is, you know, how does it look from the perspective of a state that's seen so much wealth domestically in countries like Iraq or oil-rich Iraq go to waste by the Iraqis themselves, by the way. Let's put aside the American contributions and resources. When it comes to Syria, for example, are they heeding the lessons of the past?
So first, let me misuse the 4 minutes I have, given my ranch, to welcome you all to Doha. I hope you had a pleasant flight in. Yesterday, I was in one of the rooms over there, and we signed a very historic agreement between the Colombian government and between EGC. We used to call them the Gaitanista Colombian Self-Proclaimed Army. I think the rebranding makes things easier. The agreement shows that peace deals can be reached between state and non-state actors. It was one of the shortest mediations we started. It started early this year. We had the first session, the first meeting on the 9th of September.